I picked up this book because I was intrigued. Okay, why is this heterosexual, presumably cisgendered couple in a forbidden love? I think it's because she's kind of blonde and he's a brunette. That's the only thing I can think of right now. Hi, Alexi here, and welcome back to my channel where I scream into the void about fandom and sometimes I read. This is part of my series Alexi Touches Grass, in which I operate off of merely a hope, a script, and a dream instead of doing a bunch of outside research and reading academic papers to bring you something. Except I'm not even doing that today because I was out thrifting the other day. Specifically, I was at the Oakland Free Store. If you are in the Bay Area, check them out. They're awesome. You get one free item. And you can also buy plants that are very reasonably priced, I would say. But anyways, I went with my aunts and I was checking out the get as many as you want free items outside when I came upon this book. And I don't know why anybody would want to give this book away. So yeah, I picked up this book and I was intrigued. I was like, well, why is this heterosexual, presumably cis of gender? Oh, hi, Captain. It's my aunt's dog. Well, I have not read this book at all. I have just read the summary and I have read what Sweet Valley High is. And I thought we could read it. We could read it together today. I don't know how far I'll get in this video. I might come back later. I do have to walk those dogs and I have to get a haircut today. So we'll see how far we get today in Sweet Valley High Forbidden Love. So basically, Sweet Valley High was this series of books allegedly by Francine Pascal, but it was written by a group of ghostwriters, right? And there was a bunch of them. I'll have the number on the screen here because I don't have the Wikipedia page pulled up. My mom called them the Percy Jackson of her generation. So I'm really excited. So let me read the back cover to you, and then I'll take my aunt's two very fluffy dogs for a walk in the rain, so I might kind of look like a bedraggled cat when I get back. Bedraggled, look at me, English major word. Sweet Valley High, forbidden love. Diamonds are forever, ... Maria Santelli's engagement to Michael Harris is the talk of Sweet Valley High. But they must keep it secret from their parents. Years ago, the two families had a huge argument, and Michael and Maria were forbidden from seeing each other. At first, the sparkle in Maria's eyes nearly matches the sparkle of her diamond ring. But being engaged isn't as easy as Maria had expected. She's used to doing things on her own, but now Michael acts as if he owns her. He's even jealous of her helping Winston Egbert with his campaign for student council. Maria's beginning to think that she and Michael were happier before their engagement. Will Michael and Maria resolve their differences and go ahead with their wedding plans? Or will their secret engagement destroy their relationship forever? I can't believe somebody was giving this away for free. Okay, we're back. It was raining. That's great. Oh, okay, so this is number 34. I don't know if there were more after this is the thing. I think there were. Number 13 is called Kidnapped. What is happening at Sweet Valley High? It's also for ages 12 and up, and it's from 1987. So let's start with reading Francine Pascal's Sweet Valley High, number 34, Forbidden Love. It's so exciting, Jessica gushed. I can't believe someone in our class is getting married. Jess, said Elizabeth sharply, I don't think you realize how serious this whole thing is. Maria's only 16, and Michael can't be much older. What? If I was their parents, I would be against this too. What do you mean? They're only 16 Michael can't be much older. Is Michael? How old is Michael?
I'm Chris Hansen.
How old is Michael? Who cares? Jessica said. Elizabeth sighed. She wished she could be as enthusiastic about Maria and Michael's engagement as everyone else at Sweet Valley High. Hey, Jessica said, maybe cheerleading practice won't be so bad after all. We'll be able to pump Maria and find out everything about the wedding. When Michael popped the question whether he got her a ring and all the important stuff. Right, Elizabeth said ironically. No point in worrying about the trivial things like what they're going to do with the fact that their parents don't even know they're dating. You don't have a romantic bone in your body, Jessica accused. I just don't see what's romantic about a secret engagement, that's all, Elizabeth replied. She didn't know Maria or Michael very well, but she hoped more than anything they knew what they were doing. Chapter 1. We have these cute little chapter headers. Rose and Chains with its graphics, Alchemized with its maps. Could never. I can't believe it, Jessica Wakefield grumbled. She tossed her silky, sun-streaked blonde hair over her right shoulder. A gorgeous Friday afternoon, and Ricky Capaldo has to call a special cheerleading practice. Elizabeth stretched luxuriously, ignoring the plaintive note in her twin sister's voice. The last period of the school day had just ended, and she and her sister were relaxing on the emerald green lawn in front of Sweet Valley High. Elizabeth was waiting for her best friend, Enid Rollins. Like from Alchemized, I need to stop reading Hermione books. I need to be done. Elizabeth was waiting for her best friend, Enid Rollins, to emerge from the school, and Jessica was waiting for cheerleading practice to begin. Jessica didn't usually mind practice. Cheerleading was one of her favorite activities, especially since the squad had purchased new uniforms with short pleated skirts. Jessica knew she looked terrific in her uniform, and she loved cheering in front of big crowds, but she felt Friday afternoon was a better time to relax on the beach than work on routines on the football field. Oh yeah, Sweet Valley High takes place in basically a suburb of Los Angeles. Although in California, we don't really say suburb of. That was really confusing when I got to college because people would be like, oh, I'm from a suburb of Chicago. And then they would ask me, oh, are you from a suburb of San Francisco? And I was like, no. But for simplicity's sake, we'll call it a suburb of Los Angeles. Also, maybe that's what they call it in SoCal. I don't know. You guys freak me out. Respectfully. She scrunched her face up in exaggeration, and Elizabeth burst out laughing. What's wrong with you, Jess? She asked. You look like you're trying to turn yourself inside out. Jessica eyed her twin loftily. I happen to be thinking, Liz, she retorted. Can't you tell? Elizabeth suppressed an urge to laugh. Sometimes she couldn't believe she and Jessica were twins. True, with their blue-green eyes, sun-streaked hair, and big smiles, they were mirror images of each other. Their willowy 5'6" frames were similar enough to allow them to trade clothing, even though Elizabeth dressed much more conservatively than Jessica. But choice of clothes was only one way in which they were opposites. Take cheerleading, for instance. The last thing Elizabeth would ever do voluntarily would be to jump around in front of a bunch of strangers. Elizabeth wasn't shy, but she liked her privacy. She preferred activities where she could use her mind. Her favorite hobby was writing, and she devoted hours every week to the Oracle, Sweet Valley High's newspaper. Slow and steady was one of Elizabeth's favorite mottos. She disliked change. Girl, same. Unlike Jessica, she could not see the appeal of changing fashions every 10 seconds, racing from one boyfriend to the next, or throwing herself into new hobbies with dizzying speed. Elizabeth liked to have fun as much as her twin, but her energies were more likely to be devoted to fundraising projects, community activities, or relaxing with a few close friends. Here too, the twins differed. Jessica's friends were mostly girls she knew from cheerleading or Pi Beta Alpha, the exclusive sorority both she and Elizabeth belonged to. Elizabeth thought most of the sorority girls were snobs. She much preferred Enid's quiet companionship and the solid, affectionate relationship she had with her boyfriend, Jeffrey French. Elizabeth didn't mind leaving the dazzle and theatrics to her twin. Hey, Jessica said, her eyes brightening as she focused on a small, dark girl coming out of the main doors of the school. There's Maria. Elizabeth followed her gaze. Brown-haired, pretty Maria Santelli was a junior, like the twins. Recently, she had been the subject of a great deal of gossip. "Have you found out yet whether or not it's true?" she asked. "Are Maria and Michael really engaged?" Jessica hugged her knees with excitement. "It's wonderful," she gushed. "I can't believe someone in our very own class is getting married." Her expression was dreamy.
Who the hell is Dr. McDreamy?
"I wonder if I'll get to be a bridesmaid. I can wear flowers in my hair and everything. And maybe I'll catch the bouquet." "Jess," Elizabeth said sharply, "I don't think you realize how serious this whole thing is. There's more to marriage than just a ring and a wedding. Maria's only 16 and Michael can't be much more than 17. Michael Harris was a senior. He and Maria had been dating, but no one could have imagined they would be getting engaged. So at least it's not a super problematic age gap, I would say. Although, I think when I was a senior in high school, I would not have wanted to be dating a 16-year-old. 16 and 18 are very different ages. But I guess they're saying that he's not much more than 17, so maybe he just turned 18. Also, are there sororities in high schools, or are they part of a college sorority already? Is this a rich people school thing? Somebody let me know. Okay, more to marriage, blah, 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 blah. "Who cares?" Jessica responded. "Mr. Collins said Juliet was only 14 when she met Romeo. Age," she added authoritatively, "has nothing to do with anything."
I'm Chris Hansen.
Elizabeth sighed. She wished she could be as enthusiastic about Maria and Michael's engagement as everyone else seemed to be. Not that either Maria or Michael had yet confirmed the rumor that was spreading around school like wildfire. Elizabeth couldn't help hoping that it was only that, a rumor. Kara Walker, one of Jessica's best friends and the girlfriend of the twins' brother, Stephen, had broken the news to the twins a few days before. Characteristically, Jessica had been instantly excited. Maria was a cheerleader.
"I'm a cheerleader!"
But Jessica had never been very close to her. Now she acted as though Maria were her best friend. "Hey," Jessica said, leaning forward and craning her neck to follow Maria's progress across the lawn and down the footpath to the athletic field. "Maybe practice won't be so bad after all. We'll be able to pump Maria and find out everything about it. When Michael popped the question, whether he got her a ring, and all the important stuff." Elizabeth shook her head. "Right," she said sarcastically. "No point in worrying about the trivial thing, like what they're going to do about the fact that their parents don't even know that they're dating." The Santellis and Harrises had been bitter enemies since a business venture had soured years before. They had forbidden their children from seeing each other. Jessica looked sober. "Isn't it exciting?" she said, her eyes widening as she considered Michael and Maria's predicament. Predicament. "Liz, don't you wish Jeffrey's parents were feuding with Mom and Dad? Don't you think it would make everything more interesting between you two?" Elizabeth spotted Enid coming out of the school and waved at her friend. "No," she said to her twin firmly. "I don't think Jeffrey and I need a feud to make things interesting. But thanks for the suggestion." Jessica looked hurt. "I don't get it," she said. "My own flesh and blood, and you don't have a romantic bone in your body." "I just don't see what's romantic about a secret engagement, that's all," Elizabeth replied, getting to her feet. She didn't know Maria very well, but everything she had heard about her relationship with Michael worried Elizabeth. She hoped they knew what they were doing. "Well, I'm going to practice. I'm going to find out the whole story," Jessica declared. She jumped to her feet and grabbed the hot pink nylon duffel bag with her gear. "See you later." Elizabeth sighed as her sister raced off. She could always count on one thing. Wherever the excitement was, Jessica was bound to be right in the thick of it. And Maria and Michael's engagement was the hottest thing to hit Sweet Valley High in months. Enid and Elizabeth were strolling home together, enjoying the balmy, cloudless Southern California afternoon and discussing the events of the week. Enid Rollins was an attractive brown-haired girl with an open, friendly expression. She and Elizabeth had been best friends for quite a while and were often able to guess what was on each other's minds. "What do you think of the new social studies project?" Enid asked, her green eyes twinkling. "It seems like everyone has marriage on the brain these days." Elizabeth chuckled. As part of a social studies unit, Some juniors and seniors were going to take part in a special seminar on family and marriage. Mr. Jaworski, a history teacher who would lead the discussion, had proposed to the seminar to introduce students to some of the issues adults face in everyday life. Students would be paired up into husband and wife teams on Monday. Each couple would be given a folder containing information about their social status, income, and occupation. They would be given a set of facts about their imaginary family, how many children they had, what ages they were, their names, whether they had any special problems. That's me and my special problems, guys. The family and marriage unit would last 2 weeks, though they would spend time on it only every other day. Each pair would be given test problems to work out, and at the end of each hour, one couple would be chosen to report how they had worked through the problem, what additional problems they had encountered, and what they had learned from the experiment. I think it's a good idea, Elizabeth said enthusiastically. I was trying to tell Jessica that, but she wouldn't listen, she added. It seems like a good thing to talk about some of the aspects of marriage people don't really consider, the day-to-day nitty-gritty stuff. Jeffrey's in our seminar, Enid teased her friend. Maybe you two will get teamed up. So are Maria and Michael, as Elizabeth said, frowning. What do you think of this whole business about their engagement? Well, I don't know much about it, Enid said, but I thought that Maria was forbidden even to go out with Michael. I thought their parents were bitter enemies or something. I thought so too. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's true, Elizabeth said. It seems a little rash to be getting engaged, don't you think? Enid pushed her brown hair away from her face, a sign she was deep in thought. Part of me thinks it's pretty romantic, she admitted. But I can see a million problems. They're awfully young, for one thing. It's funny, Elizabeth mused. Maria seems to have so many plans. She brought some material to the Oracle office the other day for an outward-bound project she wanted to organize this summer. She said she needed to get a certain number of kids for it to get off the ground. Do you think she'll be able to do that if she and Michael get married? I don't know, Enid answered. She does seem like someone who has a lot of commitments. She's got cheerleading and the sorority, and she's been helping Winston run for student council PTA representative. Isn't PTA Parent Teacher Association? What does student council PTA representative mean? Oh, maybe he's representing the student council to the PTA. Okay, that would make sense. That would make sense. If we finally get to Maria's point of view, maybe we'll find out. But right now, we're really focused on Elizabeth and Eden and Jessica, I guess. Elizabeth looked interested. I didn't know he was running, she commented. Winston Sorry, his last name is Egbert. I'm sorry to anyone whose last name is Egbert, but that's really funny to me for some reason. Winston Egbert, a tall, lanky junior with dark hair, was the acknowledged class clown. He hardly seemed to be the type who would be interested in serving as a liaison between the student council and the parent-teacher association. Okay, so I should have just read another paragraph. That was on me, guys. A few students had already put themselves in the running for the spot, which Elizabeth knew was an important one. And now that she thought about it, she realized that Winston wasn't a bad choice after all. He was hardworking and earnest and would give his all to whatever he chose to do. I heard Maria tell Olivia Davidson about it yesterday, Enid said. Apparently it's something he really wants. Only he doesn't have much confidence, not when it comes to something so serious as this. So Maria's been helping him out. She's on the council and has been giving him pointers. She's his official manager. She's making posters for him, helping him with his campaign speeches, things like that. Elizabeth didn't say anything for a minute. It seemed to her that by getting engaged to Michael Harris, Maria Santelli was making an enormous mistake. She seemed to be such an energetic, ambitious girl. She had her whole life in front of her. Why get married in her junior year of high school? And what about Michael? Elizabeth didn't know him at all. He was on the tennis team, a tall, athletic guy with dark hair and warm hazel eyes. He had a healthy suntan, was well-groomed, and had a slightly studious air that had always appealed to Elizabeth. He seemed like a perfectly nice guy. A nice guy. But a husband? Listen, is Elizabeth against the marriage? Because maybe she has a crush on Michael? It seemed too crazy to believe, but it wasn't her business. Elizabeth reminded herself. She was sure Maria and Michael knew what they were doing. After all, they had known each other for years. Still, she couldn't help feeling curious. And she couldn't help looking forward to the report she knew her twin would have when she returned home from cheerleading practice. To be so honest, I don't think Elizabeth thinks that Michael and Maria know what they're doing. Like, she just spent this whole chapter being like, well, Maria seems like she has a lot of commitments. Can she commit to marriage as well? This social studies project sounds interesting though. I'm excited to see where that goes. And I'm excited to maybe finally get Maria and Michael's point of view. Do you have any idea how gorgeous you are? Jeffrey French said in a husky voice. He leaned over and traced one of Elizabeth's eyebrows with his finger. The afternoon sun was beginning to fade, and the two were swinging together in the new hammock Mr. Wakefield had hung between two trees in the Wakefield's backyard. Prince Albert, the Wakefield's new golden retriever puppy, was sound asleep on Elizabeth's lap. Who? Elizabeth said teasingly. Prince Albert or me? But her eyes misted over a little, despite the light tone of her voice. She loved it when Jeffrey had that little catch in his voice. You're pretty special yourself. Oh, whoops, wrong voice. You're pretty special yourself, she murmured, resting her head on his chest. She had always thought Jeffrey was incredibly good looking, but that afternoon he looked more handsome than usual. He had a deep tan, and his green eyes glowed. His thick blonde hair was bleaching out a little too, and he looked so strong and so protective. Elizabeth sighed with contentment. Overhead, the leaves glinted with fading sunlight. I feel so safe, Elizabeth murmured, stroking Prince Albert's head with her hand. Jeffrey, she added softly, do you ever think about getting married? Jeffrey was quiet for a minute. Sure, he said at last. I think about it sometimes. I try to picture where I'm going to live and what my kids will look like. Elizabeth felt funny. She and Jeffrey had been a couple for a while now, but they'd never had a conversation like this before. She felt strangely nervous bringing it up, but the matter-of-fact tone in Jeffrey's voice reassured her. But you do think about it as something way down the road, don't you? She asked. Jeffrey chuckled. You're not proposing to me, are you? He teased. Silly Jeffrey. Women can't propose.
Silly rabbit.
Elizabeth slapped his arm lightly. Fat chance, she joked. No, I was just thinking about Maria and Michael, that's all. Jeffrey murmured. Strange, isn't it? I wonder what the story is. Elizabeth stared up at the leaves overhead, quiet contentment washing over her. She had wondered too, but now she felt so peaceful she didn't care about anything but being right where she was. She was about to tell Jeffrey about how she felt, but he silenced her by leaning over and covering her lips with his. The next minute, Prince Albert woke up with a squeal as Jeffrey leaned on him. Elizabeth started laughing. Darn dog, Jeffrey complained, but he was too busy smiling at Elizabeth to think about Prince Albert for long. That was the end of the first chapter, by the way. So what's interesting about this, I feel like, is, I mean, it's for kids 12 and up, so it makes sense that, like, Elizabeth and Jeffrey weren't making out or whatever, right? But I think it's kind of interesting that they're chaperoned by the narrative by Kate William, writing that Elizabeth's dad had put up the hammock, like, even though her dad isn't there, he's still chaperoning them via being responsible for the hammock. Does that make any sense? And also the dog is there, so nothing too untoward can happen between them. I also think it's interesting that Jeffrey didn't say like, oh, I think about how our kids will look. He said, I think about how my kids will look. So like, you know, maybe he doesn't envision himself with his high school sweetheart, and that's okay. Do I know anybody from high school was married? I know people who are still with their high school sweethearts and are very cute. Whatever, I'm gonna get a cup of tea because my voice already hurts, and then we'll move on to chapter 2. Chapter 2. Come on, girls, Ricky Capaldo cried. We've got to get the pyramid right this afternoon. Everybody line up and let's figure out who's going to go where. Ricky was the cheerleaders' manager, a short, energetic boy with an endless fund of humor. He had worked hard to make the squad as good as it was. There were 8 cheerleaders in all. Jessica and Robin Wilson were co-captains. Jessica's friend Kara Walker was also on the team, along with Maria, Jeannie West, Sandra Bacon, Ricky's ex-girlfriend, Annie Whitman, and the newest member of the team, Amy Sutton. Amy had been Elizabeth's best friend in 6th grade, but they had lost touch after Amy's family moved to the East Coast. When the Suttons came back to Sweet Valley, Elizabeth and Amy found that they had grown in different directions. Elizabeth found Amy boy crazy and irresponsible, whereas Jessica thought she was tons of fun. Jessica had been instrumental in getting Amy on the team. Now Amy, Kara, and Jessica were inseparable at practice. That afternoon, they came out of the locker room together, buzzing with excitement about Maria. "Who's gonna ask her about it?" Amy asked, pulling her blonde hair back in a ponytail. "Kara, I think you should. You're the one she confided in." "No way," Kara objected. "Maria made me promise to keep it a secret." Oh! Kara! Now the whole school knows! "Maria made me promise to keep it a secret. I can't ask her about it in front of all of you." "I know," Jessica exclaimed. "I'll just happen to grab her hand when we're getting into the pyramid formation, and I'll ask her about the ring." "Come on," Kara urged her. "Ricky's waving at us. I think we're late." As it turned out, Jessica and Amy had nothing to worry about. Maria was surrounded by the rest of the squad, her left hand extended. A small, perfectly round diamond twinkled on her third finger. The band was slender and gold and very simple. It was beautiful. "Maria, it's gorgeous!" Robin Wilson exclaimed, leaning over Maria's hand to admire the ring. "I can't believe he really gave you a diamond!" "Well, we are engaged," Maria said. Jessica and Amy crowded in to see the ring. "You mean it's all out in the open now?" Amy asked, staring at Maria's hand. Maria's face reddened. "Well, not really. I mean, we're telling our friends, but we're not letting our parents know. Not for now, anyway. So keep it quiet," she added meaningfully. Jessica stared at the ring, watching the sunlight shoot through the gem, making fiery sparkles of light. "What a beautiful ring," she said. "Maria, tell us how it happened. When did he ask you?" Maria tossed back her hair, clearly enjoying the attention. She was a pretty girl, but that afternoon she seemed truly beautiful. There was something different about her, a new kind of excitement. Her eyes glowed, and her cheeks were flushed with excitement. "I'll tell you," she said dramatically, "but remember, not a word of it to your parents." Her large eyes narrowed momentarily. "My parents would absolutely kill me if they found out." "Before you tell us how you got engaged, would you just explain what the deal is between your parents and the Harrises?" Robin Wilson asked. Maria sighed. "It's a real mess. It's kind of a long story," she added, looking nervously at Ricky. "Go on." "Oh, wait. Go on," Ricky said, obviously too interested to remind them about practicing. "Do they not have a cheer coach?" "How are they learning how to do a pyramid without a cheer coach? Because Ricky's their age." "Well, Michael's father and my father used to be partners." "Oh?" Maria began. "They went to college together and were really close." "I bet they were, Maria." "They formed the business partnership 10 years ago. They did everything together. They played tennis, socialized together, worked together. They even joked about Michael and me. They thought it would be great if we grew up and fell in love." "I bet they did everything together, Maria." Maria's expression grew serious. "Anyway, 4 years ago they had a huge fight. I can't really go into it now. It's all too complicated. The important thing is that their friendship and their business partnership ended then and there. It was awful for all of us. The next thing we knew was they stopped speaking. It all had to do with a big deal they were trying to put together. The deal fell through, they split up their partnership, and I was told we weren't ever going to see the Harrises again." She was quiet for a minute. "Well, a few months ago, Michael and I ended up working on a project for the Film Society together. We hadn't spoken in years. We were really weird around each other at first, and then we found out we still liked each other. A lot. Only by then we weren't really kids anymore," she blushed happily. "And the rest is history. We've been going out ever since." "Wait, so they've only been going out?" Sorry, I was getting my tea. "They've only been going out for a few months? What in the lesbian time is this shit? What in the U-Haul? Yes. But what about your parents?" Jessica demanded. "How do they feel about the whole thing?" Maria set her jaw stubbornly. "They found out about it and told us to stop seeing each other. We thought we should bring it out in the open, but Michael didn't want to upset his dad, so we just continued to meet anyways without them knowing." She smiled sadly. "They think we broke up." "We broke up." Where do you tell them you go when you and Michael hang out? Amy asked, fascinated. They think I have a boyfriend named Josh, Maria told her. I hate lying, she added, but they're being so unreasonable. What else can we do? They keep choosing the whitest white names to ever white, and I should know. When do you plan to let them know? Robin asked. Haven't your parents asked you about your ring? Maria looked embarrassed. I take it off when I get home and keep it in my pocket, she admitted. Just for now. We're planning to tell them all soon. We just need a little more time to get them prepared. So tell us how it happened, Amy cajoled. We want to know all about it, every last detail. Maria's face filled with joy. Clearly, this was the part of the story she preferred to dwell on. How long are these chapters? You wouldn't believe it, she murmured, looking with admiration at her ring as it twinkled in the sunlight. You have no idea how wonderful it is to be engaged. When Michael asked me, where were you? Jessica asked. Did he take you somewhere really romantic? We were at Seca Lake, Maria reminisced dreamily. We were parked there, watching the stars and everything. It was a really gorgeous night, and there was all this moonlight on the water. The whole lake looked silvery. You know what I mean? The group of girls around her were entranced, listening to her every word with fascination. Even Ricky seemed unable to interrupt. Anyways, it was perfectly quiet. There was nothing moving, just the lake in front of us, all silvery and calm. Michael kept staring at me, and I felt really self-conscious. Maria played with the ring, her eyes wide as she recollected the scene. We had been talking really seriously for a long time about all sorts of things. Yeah, the long time, the couple of months you've been dating? Girl, about all sorts of things, including the future. Then all of a sudden, he took a box out of the glove compartment and opened it and handed it to me. She closed her eyes briefly, and when she opened them again, they were shining with tears of happiness. I couldn't believe it. What did he say? Amy prompted her. Did he ask you, or did he put the ring on your finger? He asked me, Maria said. He said some things I can't repeat. Oh? He said some things I can't repeat, and then he kissed me. And then he asked me if I wear the ring, and if I'd marry him. Robin Wilson gasped, and the tension was broken as everyone giggled. It's so exciting, Robin said apologetically. I'm sorry, Maria, go on. Jessica pretended to swoon. That, she said dramatically, is the most romantic thing I've heard in my entire life. Me too, Annie Whitman exclaimed. She blushed a little as she caught Ricky's eye. She and Ricky used to date, and though they were still good friends, Annie found it embarrassing sometimes to talk about romance in front of him. You know what's interesting about this is in this book, usually I don't treat my books this way, but this is pretty torn up. They say me, comma, two. Oh, you can't see it really well. Which I think is not technically correct grammar, but whenever I'm writing out me too as in like agreement, I'm really tempted to write it that way because of 50 Shades of Grey. Like that's how E.L. James writes it the whole time, and it's so annoying. Also, like, I tried to read 50 Shades of Grey at one point, and it wasn't like the bad writing that made me DNF or like the really weird sex scenes or anything like that. It was that Anna so clearly has an eating disorder. And I found myself low-key agreeing with Christian Grey at times when he was like, you need to eat, I'm using our dynamic to order you to eat. And I was like, I can't be at a point where I agree with Christian Grey. Like, that can't be my life, I'm sorry.
You're saying 50 Shades of fucked up.
Me, comma, too, Annie Whitman exclaimed. She blushed a little as she caught Ricky's eye. She and Ricky used to date. And though they were still good friends, Annie found it embarrassing sometimes to talk about romance in front of him. It is romantic, agreed Ricky, but I think as your manager, you girls really need to stop thinking about romance and rings and start thinking about your pyramid formation. There's a big soccer game coming up, and you don't want to look terrible, do you? I want to be next to Maria, Jessica declared. Me, comma, too, everyone else exclaimed, pushing closer to the tiny brunette. Maria's eyes were shining as brightly as the diamond on her left hand. She loved telling them about Michael. As far as she was concerned, becoming engaged was the best thing that had ever happened to her. Boy, Ricky sure knows how to tire a girl out, Annie grumbled as she and Maria crossed the parking lot. Maria nodded in agreement, barely hearing her friend's complaint. She was scanning the parking lot for Michael's Trans Am. There he is, she said aloud, her voice lighting up. Annie, I've got to run, she added apologetically, tossing her duffel bag over one shoulder and hurrying off without looking back. Hey, she said happily, throwing her bag in the car and climbing in after it. She kissed Michael on the cheek and patted his arm. Do you have any idea how good it is to see you? She asked, her voice husky. Probably about as good as it is to see you, Michael told her. Maria felt a surge of pride as she regarded Michael. She loved the way he looked. He was well built, though slender.
The name that we found earlier in the article was Slenderman.
His dark hair was neat and short. She liked his glasses too, especially the way they slid down his nose when he played tennis, and he had the sweetest sprinkling of freckles on his nose. I still can't believe it, she murmured as he started the motor. I guess it's his car, so it makes sense that he's driving. I'll give them that. I'll give you that, Kate William. Believe what? He asked, grinning. Believe we're engaged, you dope, she giggled. I told the squad. You should have seen their faces. Michael's eyes darkened. Hey, I thought this was supposed to be a secret, he objected. No offense to some of your squad members, but they're not exactly famous for their discretion. Between Jessica and Kara and Amy Sutton. They promised not to tell, Maria protested, feeling hurt. I made them, she toyed with the door handle for a minute. Anyways, what's the point of being engaged if we can't tell anyone about it? Girl, your parents! Your parents! Michael sighed. We've been through this all before. We'll tell people eventually, just not now. Maria bit her lip for a moment. Oh, never mind, she exclaimed. I don't want to argue with you. I'd hate to end up like Kate and Richard. Kate was Michael's older sister. She was 23 and was supposed to marry Richard that summer, but all they ever seemed to do was argue. Maria hadn't seen Richard and Kate together in ages, ever since the Harrises and the Santellis had their falling out. So of course you haven't seen them together in ages. You haven't seen her in ages. Oh my god, Object Permanence has never met her. But she could remember their arguments from the old days, and she heard enough of their fighting now from Michael to be sure that theirs was a relationship she couldn't bear to be in. You're not fair about Kate, Michael objected. She and Richard just have their own way of dealing with things. Well, just the same, I'd hate to deal with things the way they do, Maria shuddered as she remembered the terrible fights Kate and Richard had had. We won't be like that, will we? Of course not, Michael said, leaning over and patting her leg. Maria was thoughtful as he drove her home. She felt strange about having made a critical comment about anyone in Michael's family. By some unspoken agreement, Michael always made a point of defending her parents, and she defended his. Whenever they talked about their parents, each took the other's side. She had never made a negative comment about anyone in his family before that remark about Kate. It wasn't a big deal, but it struck her as strange. What do you want to do this weekend? Michael asked her. You feel like seeing a movie tonight? Maria thought about it for a moment, then said, whatever you want to do. They were nearing Orange Street, and she knew any minute he would slow down, park, and let her out. They always stopped here, and she walked the last 2 blocks. Her parents both worked, but her little sister, Diane, got home early, and she saw Michael's Trans Am. Maria felt a lump in her throat. She hated sneaking around this way. Sometimes she felt she couldn't stand it a minute longer. It just seemed so unfair. Why couldn't she and Michael just go out the way other people did? We'll see the family feud. The feud between the family feud. Like, we just were talking about that. Hey, Michael was saying softly. Are you okay? Suddenly the lump melted. I'm fine, Maria murmured, lifting her face for his kiss. She forgot all about sneaking around then. It was enough to feel him near her, enough to realize that they belonged to each other now and forever and ever. Should I pick you up right here at 8? He asked. Maria nodded, reluctantly turning away from him. But he's mine, really mine. We're engaged, she reminded herself as she opened the car door and slid out. Michael was her fiancé. Before she closed the car door, she stuck her head inside and said softly, I love you, Michael. Michael leaned over and kissed her lightly. I love you too, Maria. See you tonight. Maria nodded, then closed the car door. Fiancé, she said aloud as she walked slowly down the street. Michael beat the car horn once, waved, and pulled away from the curb. Maria watched him go in silence. Everything was happening so fast. She couldn't remember ever being so happy. She just wished she didn't have to lie to her parents. Slowly, she headed towards her house, trying to decide where to tell them Josh was taking her that night. Okay, so I can admit when I was wrong. That's a really important skill, and I was wrong that what is keeping them apart was him having dark hair and her having blonde hair, because she is allegedly not blonde. You know, it does seem like their parents' relationship is really, you know, it's casting a strain on them. It's interesting that they're like defending each other's parents. I think that's nice that they're like trying to see each other's sides, but also Maria feeling like she can't criticize his family at all is not super healthy. And also him being like, oh, that's just how Kate and whatever Kate's boyfriend's name is communicate when they're like arguing all the time. Like, does that mean he'll be able to communicate healthily in a relationship? Like, I'm a little worried about that, Michael. I'm a little worried. Chapter 3. Oh, I gotta choose a voice for the t-shirt. Maybe I'll do an accent. He's gonna be British. Sorry to British people, I guess.
I'm sorry, women.
Today, Mr. Jaworski announced, his eyes twinkling. These people's eyes twinkle all the time. Oh my god, they twinkle and they glow. That's a little concerning. They should get that checked out. It's the first day of our family and marriage seminar. The group broke into giggles as they watched him rifle through the tiny scraps of paper in the box on his desk. Now, you all understand the rules. There are 24 of you, 12 boys and 12 girls. Each boy's name is written on a slip of paper in this box, and each girl will now come up to the front of the room and draw, he cleared his throat dramatically, the man who will be your husband for the next 2 weeks. In the seminar, that is. Everyone laughed, and the girls got up and formed a line. Jessica drew first, and the crowd burst into applause when she read the slip of paper aloud. Winston Egbert. I'm sorry, that's such a name. That's such a name. I'm so sorry, guys. Elizabeth drew Bruce Patman, who gave her a big wink as she pronounced his name. She couldn't help smiling at the prospect of pretending to be married to one of the richest boys in the school. In the old days, Bruce would have been a pain to work with, she thought. He used to have an ego problem, but his relationship with Regina Morrow had mellowed him, and she thought their marriage would be fun. I'm wondering if his relationship with Regina Morrow is in one of these other books. One of these is called When Love Dies? Does somebody die? There's another one called Hostage. What is happening in these books? The rest of the girls drew their names fairly quickly. Olivia Davidson drew Jeffrey. She smiled at Elizabeth. I promise not to get carried away, she whispered to Elizabeth when she returned to her seat. That sounds like a threat. Elizabeth, watch your man. Lila Fowler, the spoiled daughter of a computer magnate, looked less than thrilled when she was assigned to Bill Chase, whom she secretly found a little dull. But no one paid attention to Lila. The group was too busy watching Maria's face as she reached for her slip, the third to last in the box. Michael's name hadn't been chosen yet. Word had gotten around about her engagement to Michael, and it was evident to everyone that this experiment would have more meaning for Maria and Michael than for anyone else concerned. Michael Harris, she read aloud. The classroom burst into applause, and everyone clapped, it's giving Tumblr, and Maria blushed. Everyone was too busy watching Michael and Maria to notice that Enid was matched up with Ken Matthews, captain of the football team, and Amy Sutton drew Roger Patman, Bruce's cousin, and Olivia's boyfriend. Is it heteronormative of me that, like, low-key this project does sound kind of fun? Like, I think the idea of having to choose, like, oh, you have this financial status and you have to deal with it, or like, oh, you have this many kids and you have to budget for it, like, that does actually sound pretty interesting. However, I think I would struggle. Well, there are men I know and like. I know men. But it does sound sort of interesting, and I feel like it'll be particularly good for Michael and Maria, whose relationship I'm now very invested in. However, Michael was correct that if Maria told these gossipy friends of hers, that news would get around. And what I'm worried about, not knowing, the size of the town of Sweet Valley, is that gossip will then get back to people's parents. Because, small towns, having grown up in a small town, which does make it sound like I grew up in a suburb of San Francisco, gossip does travel very, very quickly. So I'm a little worried about Michael and Maria's privacy is what I'm saying. Let's get started, Mr. Jaworski said enthusiastically. Now, each husband has been given a folder with a fact sheet inside it. Girls, why don't you join your classroom spouses now and find out where you live, what you do, and anything else that's in your folder. I can't believe this, Jessica groaned. Winston's a bus driver. What's wrong with that? Winston asked indignantly. Consider it a golden chariot, my dear. Besides, he added, looking down at the fact sheet with a smile, we'll have plenty of room for our 7 children. Oh, absolutely not. Jessica looked upset. And how am I going to have any time for fun with 7 children and a part-time job in a beauty parlor? Just bring them with you, girl. Lila Fowler was examining Bill Chase's folder with horror. At least your husband has a job, she shrieked. It looks like I'm doomed to be in the breadline. Bill's unemployed. Elizabeth giggled. She and Bruce sorted through their folder and discovered that Bruce was a doctor and Elizabeth was a 4th grade teacher. They had 2 children, a boy who was 7 years old and a girl who was 9. Soon everyone had adjusted to his or her new identity. Olivia and Jeffrey were co-owners of a small metal business. Enid was an actress and Ken Matthews a coach. Amy Sutton was a lawyer and Roger a banker, which seemed to delight Amy. You've got it made, Roger, she kept saying. We'll have to budget all our money for fantastic vacations. What jobs did you 2 get? Winston asked Maria and Michael. Maria laughed. Michael's a veterinarian and I'm a housewife, she said. Can you believe it? I must be the only wife who didn't get a job. Being a housewife is a job, Michael pointed out. Maria rolled her eyes. I mean a real job, she retorted. I'll trade with you, Jessica volunteered. I'd much rather be a housewife than a part-time manicurist or whatever I am. Don't be discontented with your lot, dear, Winston chided her. Otherwise, you'll start getting all sorts of fancy ideas about things we can't afford. Oh, we can't have that. Silly women.
Silly kid, tricks of Paramus.
They don't know money. Jessica tried to take a swipe at him. Jesus, domestic violence already. But Winston ducked. Okay, let's get started, Mr. Jaworski announced. The first part of the unit has to do with family budgeting. Everyone turn to page 2 of your printout. The number on the top of the page is your annual joint income after taxes. Has everyone found that number? This is impossible, Lila moaned. Bill, that must be the wrong page number. No one can live on that amount of money. Now, today's project is to start making a budget. On page 3 of your printout, you'll find several sets of budgetary choices. In part 1, for instance, there are several kinds of homes and their monthly rates. Some are higher than others. You will decide where to allocate the money you have. One category will be rental or mortgage allotment. Another is food. Then there's education, and of course furniture and clothing. And I think we need to shift our education and rental money to the clothing category, Jessica told Winston. I'm going to need some new clothes this year, Winston dear. Then where are we gonna live? In the back of the bus? Winston grumbled. Right on the magic You have 45 minutes, Mr. Jaworski told them. Don't make any decisions too hastily. You'll have more time to work on your budgets on Wednesday, and then we'll choose a couple to discuss the decisions they've made and why. Jessica and Elizabeth exchanged amused glances. Clearly, the next 2 weeks were going to be a lot of fun. Jessica could hardly wait to see how Lila Fowler coped with life on unemployment checks. Jesus! And it seemed lucky that Maria and Michael had gotten each other. What could be better than for the 2 of them to pretend at what would soon become the real thing? Maybe I am too old and it is too late. I'm gonna end up a spinster like Kate. Jessica was rushing madly down the crowded hall in school, trying to catch up with Kara Walker and Lila Fowler. Kara, Lila, Jessica called as she got closer to the girls. I've been hoping to find you 2 together, she added as they turned around with inquisitive smiles. What's up? Kara asked. Has Lila told you about her new life as a short-order cook and bride of an unemployed 37-year-old? Jessica asked Kara with a giggle. Please, Lila said, rolling her eyes. Don't get me indigestion. I think Mr. Jaworski has really flipped this time. Anyways, this isn't why I wanted to catch you. Seeing Michael and Maria together today gave me a great idea. Don't you think we should have a party for them? Like a bridal shower? Lila asked, her brown eyes widening as she picked a piece of lint off her white skirt. Lila dressed the part of the daughter of the richest men in one of the richest men. I was really hoping that there was a gay couple in this book from 1987 that is encouraging teen marriage. And that day she looked especially good. Her white skirt showed her tan off to perfection, and a new perm made her long light brown hair look fuller and prettier than usual. No, I meant an engagement party. Something for both of them. I mean, it seems so unfair that they can't even tell their parents. They're probably dying to celebrate. How many times do you get engaged anyways? Well, if you're my grandfather, at least 3, and he's looking for a 4th. You're right, Jess, Lila said thoughtfully. They really do seem to need some kind of party. Something formal, I think. Something really big and exciting.
Hey, that's what she said.
Sounds like a Lila Fowler party, Kara said and grinned. Lila snapped her fingers. What a great idea! We can have it at my place and it can be a complete surprise, but then wouldn't Lila's parents find out if it's at her place? I feel like this is how Michael and Maria's parents are gonna find out. Jessica's eyes brightened. I love surprise parties. When should we have it? How about this Saturday? We'll need a little time to get everything organized though. We should have really fantastic wedding decorations, silver bells, and lots of white everywhere. Let's make a wedding cake, Jessica exclaimed. Shh. Lila warned her, glancing uneasily around them. Remember, it's gotta be a secret. Who should we invite? Within minutes, Jessica and Lila had ticked off the first 30 people who came to mind. I don't know, you guys, Kara said anxiously. Didn't Maria say she and Michael wanted to keep this really quiet? Maybe having a big party isn't such a good idea. Who, Jessica demanded, said anything about big?
That's what she said.
She couldn't see what Kara was fussing about. Michael and Maria clearly needed a party to celebrate their engagement. What could be more natural and more simple than inviting a few close friends over for a quiet little celebration at the Fowler's mansion on the hill? I'm gonna do like 5 chapters today because my voice is getting tired for some reason. I talk a lot. That's probably why. I talk a lot and then I make these videos and like but I'm going to a club later. And I think I'm gonna have to yell over some music. The club I'm going to, it's for a like interview with the Vampire Drag event, and I don't really understand why they're throwing it on a Tuesday, but like I'll take it. Okay, so they're gonna have a quiet little celebration on the Fowler's mansion on the hill with at least 30 people. It was after school before Maria was able to catch up to Winston with the news she had been dreading to break to him. He was on the lawn doodling in his notebook when she hurried up to him. Winston, Maria said nervously, fiddling with the edge of her notebook, it looks like I might not be able to work with you tomorrow afternoon. Winston looked down at the ground as the after-school crowd flowed past them. He and Maria had been working together every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon for the past few weeks. She had been coaching him on his student council campaign. The election was to be held in less than 2 weeks, and he felt he needed a lot more work. Already, Maria had done a great deal. She had helped him make posters for the hallways, had made up hundreds of flyers with his name on them, and had helped pass them out in the hallway. More important, she had given him an enormous amount of moral support. And now, when he needed her most... Why? He asked, trying to keep his voice casual. Maria sighed. Well, Michael says he needs me to help him pick a present for his older sister. Honestly, I don't see why we have to do tomorrow afternoon, but... That's okay, Winston said, trying not to show his disappointment. I understand. We can still meet Thursday, Maria said hastily. She couldn't bear the look on Winston's face. It wasn't just his campaign she was thinking about either. It bothered her to upset him. The truth was that Maria had come to care a great deal for Winston. They had always been friends, but she used to think of him as nothing more than a clown. Like many of her classmates, she had never realized how sensitive he was. She was glad now that she had volunteered to give him a few pointers on his campaign. The hours they spent together so far had cemented their friendship. She found herself continually impressed by Winston's other side. Sure, he was a comedian. He made her laugh so hard sometimes that her sides ached. But that didn't mean he couldn't see the more serious side of life too. She hated to let him down now, but Michael had insisted that she break her plans. In fact, they had almost quarreled about it until Maria had backed down and promised to tell Winston she had other plans. "You sure you can make it then?" Winston asked uncertainly. "Of course," Maria assured him. His face lit up. That's great, he said with evident relief. "I really want you to hear the revised conclusion I wrote. It's hard for me to tell what it's like. It seems a little naked without a single joke. But I want to know what you think. You've got such great judgment, Maria." Maria felt her face growing warm. Winston had such a peculiar look in his eyes, almost as though... She turned away, then spotted Michael bounding towards them, his book under his arm. "Oh, there's Michael," she said, trying to sound natural. "I guess I've got to go now, Winston, so we'll save our meeting for Thursday, okay?" Michael came up to them, nodded briefly at Winston, then put his arm around Maria and gave her shoulder a squeeze. "Come on, honey," he said. "Let's get going." Maria swallowed. She wished Michael could be a little nicer to Winston, but she didn't want to upset Michael by saying anything. She walked off arm in arm with Michael, afraid to turn around. All the same, she knew Winston was watching them, and she felt suddenly confused, as if something had happened that she couldn't quite bring herself to understand. So to me, it sounds as though Maria is quite conflict averse, which, is not great. What I've been learning recently in therapy is that you really do need to have some conflict in life. And by conflict, I do mean like calmly talking through, like, "Hey, I already have this commitment, so I don't think I can help you shop for your sister. But if you really want my help, maybe we can do the day afterwards." Like that kind of thing, right? Conflict isn't necessarily having a big fight over it. But it seems like she doesn't want to even have a little discussion, which then I'm sort of like, well, does that mean that Michael is incapable of just having a calm discussion as well? Or does he need to fight about it? Like, is this a mutual thing? Is he trying to fight her instead of them having a calm conversation, or is she scared that they'll quarrel instead of having a calm conversation? I don't know. I wanna read more, obviously, to judge for myself, because I could be projecting, of course. Okay. Chapter 4. "Elizabeth," Jessica said dreamily, her hands folded behind her neck as she watched the lone fluffy cloud floating across the clear sky. "Do you think you and Jeffrey will end up getting married?" It was Tuesday afternoon, and Elizabeth was doing her homework on the patio surrounding the Wakefield swimming pool, while her sister lazed on the diving board. Now she stood up from her math problems and studied her twin. "Jeffrey and I don't even know what movie we're going to see this weekend, let alone what we'll be doing months from now. How could I possibly guess about the future months from now?" "Months?" "What I mean is," Jessica said stubbornly, "do you think he's the sort of guy you could imagine being married to?" Elizabeth chewed at the end of her pencil reflectively. "Isn't it strange?" she said. "I don't think you and I have ever talked about the sort of man we'd imagine as a husband." "Well, I sure hope I don't end up marrying Winston Egbert in real life," Jessica said moodily. "Not to mention having to fight over clothing budgets. Winston claims I only get $50 a year to cover everything." Elizabeth laughed. "At the rate you're going, I bet you'll never settle down and get married. You can't even go out with the same guy 2 weekends in a row." Jessica pretended to look hurt. "You think I'm going to be a spinster, don't you?" she complained. "Oh, I don't know," Elizabeth said playfully. "Maybe someday you'll find someone crazy enough to put up with you." She ducked as her sister threw a towel at her. "But seriously," she said, "I think Jaworski's project is a good one. I know you think Michael and Maria's engagement is the world's most romantic event, but I guess I think of marriage as something bigger than romance. I mean, think about it, Jess. Imagine spending the rest of your life with someone." Jessica looked pained. "I can't," she admitted. A sudden pang seemed to strike her. "You don't think I'll end up an old maid, do you?" she asked. "So far, I haven't been very good at long-term relationships. You're the one who's good at that." But Elizabeth wasn't listening to Jessica. "I think I just heard a car stop in our driveway." Jessica sat up and swung her legs over the diving board. "Oh, that must be Lila. She wants my advice about the party we're throwing for Maria and Michael." "Party?" Elizabeth said blankly. "What party?" "The surprise party we're giving them to celebrate their engagement, silly," Jessica said airily. She leaped nimbly off the diving board onto the soft ground. "I've got to let her in." Will you bring Prince Albert out when you come? The poor thing has been in the house all day, Elizabeth called after her twin. She didn't want to nag Jessica, but even though the puppy was supposed to be chiefly her twin's responsibility, Elizabeth could tell that she herself was going to have to do more than her share to look after his welfare. A few minutes later, Jessica re-emerged from the house, a bouncing Prince Albert on the leash Elizabeth had bought him. Lila was trailing behind, her nose wrinkling at the sight of the puppy. Who doesn't like puppies? What the heck? I know I said I thought Prince Albert was really cute and everything, but you know, he seems to be getting spoiled, she complained, sitting carefully on a patio chair and smoothing her skirt over her knees. Don't let him jump on me. If he gets hair or anything on this new skirt, I'll kill him. Elizabeth couldn't suppress a twinge of pleasure when Prince Albert jumped up to greet the newcomer. A bit of dirt got onto Lila's skirt, and she looked as if she were ready to kill. Elizabeth didn't like Lila Fowler very much. She found her spoiled and affected, and she was secretly proud of Prince Albert, though she pretended to scold him. I could really start to hate this animal, Lila said. I hope you plan on sending him to obedience school. He's acting like a mongrel. Lila, Jessica said warningly, throwing her arms around the puppy and giving his golden head an exuberant kiss. You're going to have to get used to Prince Albert. He's here to stay. Well, at least he's named for royalty, Lila said, resigned. Anyways, I didn't come over to talk canines. I've got to find out what you think of the plans for the party. Elizabeth twirled a lock of her blonde hair around her index finger. I hate to intrude, she said dryly, but don't you think it's a little inappropriate to have a surprise party for Maria and Michael when they've made it clear that their engagement is a secret the whole school knows? You sound like Kara, Lila said, miffed. What's the big deal? The party's a secret, the engagement's a secret. What could be more secret, honestly? Jessica giggled. Lila's right, Liz, she said. We're not stupid. We're not inviting the Harrises or the Centellis after all. Is it gonna be a small party? Elizabeth asked. Lila said yes, and Jessica said no at the same instant, and each stared accusingly at the other. How many people? Elizabeth tried again. 50, they repeated in unison. This time they started laughing, and Prince Albert, trying to get in on the fun, jumped up to lick Lila's face. Get this mutt away from me, Lila shrieked. Anyways, Jess, I've got to ask you what you think of the engagement present I cooked up. What do you think of arranging for them to be on the newlywed game? Isn't that a little premature? Elizabeth asked Riley. Lila looked hurt. They're going to get married soon, aren't they? She demanded. Jessica looked thoughtful. Actually, Maria never said. I wonder when they are getting married. Elizabeth didn't say anything else. She listened to her sister and Lila enthusiastically discuss decorations, music, food, and the guest list. She assumed they were including her on the list, but she didn't want to go. It seemed to Elizabeth that a party this size didn't stand much chance of staying secret for long. She didn't want any part of it, because the more people who found out about the party, the greater chance someone would reveal Michael and Maria's secret. Elizabeth didn't want to butt in and warn the couple about the party. She knew her sister would kill her if she did, but she decided then and there that she wanted no part in it. It seemed far too big a risk to take. And there was no telling what would happen if either the Harrises or the Centellis learned about the truth of Michael and Maria. Maria and Michael were coming out of the Valley Mall together, the package with the gift they had selected tucked under Michael's arm. I think Kate's really gonna like the scarf, Maria said, tucking her arm through Michael's. I hope so, he said. She's kind of hard to please sometimes. Maria didn't respond. Secretly, she thought hard to please was an understatement. From everything Michael had told her, it seemed as though Kate was pretty hard to get along with at times. But she didn't want to start on their families. Everything was perfect between her and Michael, except for one thing, their families. When are you gonna give it to her? She asked him as they crossed the parking lot to his car. Probably tomorrow night. We're having a big birthday dinner for her. She's going to be coming to my match on Thursday, so we'll have to be careful. Remember to take off the ring, he told her. Maria's face clouded over. Thursday? You have a tennis match on Thursday? I thought it was on Saturday. It was, but it got changed, Michael frowned. You're going to be there, aren't you? You know how much it means to me when you come to my matches. Maria bit her lip. Oh, the thing is, Michael, I promised Winston I'd help him with his campaign speech on Thursday afternoon. After today, I really don't think I can just say no to him again. Maybe You've been helping Winston for weeks, Michael cut in angrily. How much time can it take to prepare a stupid campaign speech? You'd think he was running for president or something. Maria's eyes flashed. She had to fight hard to retain her composure. This really isn't like you, Michael. You're being so possessive, she objected. I mean, you've never acted like this before. Michael turned pale. This isn't really fair of you to say. I'm not being possessive. It's just that I want you to be there on Thursday. Come on, Maria, he pleaded, putting his arm around her and pulling her close to him. I need you more than Winston does. Maria felt her heartbeat quicken. She loved Michael so much, and she didn't want to argue with him. It made her feel terrible. On the other hand, she was used to her independence. Michael had never been like this before. They each had their share of activities. In fact, they were both really busy, and they had always been respectful of each other's decisions. That was one of the things that had made Maria fall in love with Michael in the first place. Before Michael, she had never really cared for a guy, not in any serious way. She'd had a few dates, but nothing important. From the very start, she had sensed Michael was different. He was so intelligent. She felt that she could talk about anything in the world with him, and he would understand. She fell in love with Michael almost as soon as they started dating, but both of them knew their parents would be furious if they found out about Michael and Maria's relationship. And it was all because of that fight over the Henderson contract. The feud was so old now, Maria wasn't sure she understood it entirely, or that either her father or Michael's father did either. What had happened was this. Mr. Henderson was an old client. When Maria's father discovered he was a dishonest businessman, he dropped his account without consulting Michael's father first. Michael's father accused Mr. Santelli of dealing behind his back. Both of them became enraged, and within weeks their partnership was dissolved. Michael and Maria had suffered as a result of their parents' enmity. They both cared very much for their families, and it hurt them to sneak around behind their backs now. But they were madly in love. The engagement had been Michael's idea. He had often talked about it before he actually gave Maria the ring. He felt he couldn't keep on lying to his parents, constantly deceiving them. He told Maria he thought the best way would be to make a step that would let their parents know how serious they were about each other. The plan was to choose a time and tell both sets of parents the truth, that they had fallen deeply in love and were engaged. There would be no splitting them up once their parents saw the ring. But ever since they had become engaged, Michael had said nothing about broaching the subject with their parents. In fact, he seemed even more insistent that they keep their relationship a secret. It puzzled Maria, and it hurt her a little too. She didn't want to have to keep lying. Michael, she said softly, don't you think it's time to talk to your parents? And to mine? I thought that was the plan. We can't keep our engagement secret forever. Michael looked pale. That is the plan, he assured her, but I don't think it's a very good time right now. My father's been under so much stress at work, and my mom isn't feeling well. Maria sighed. She thought Michael's mother was a hypochondriac. If they had to wait until she was feeling well, Maria thought their engagement would be a secret forever. Let's not fight anyway, she said, resigned. I can't stand arguing with you. It reminds me of what I remember about Kate and Richard, she thought miserably, unhappy and stuck with each other. Promise you'll come see me play Thursday, Michael said in a soft voice, kissing her forehead tenderly. You know you give me good luck. Well, Maria said wearily, I guess I can tell Winston I'm busy again, but his campaign is almost over. The election is coming up. If I could find someone else to take over for me... That's a great idea, Michael exclaimed. I'm sure there will be a lot of people who would do a great job. Maria felt uneasy about the situation. All right, I'll be at the tennis match, she said with a sigh. Good, Michael said happily, giving her a warm hug. To tell you the truth, Winston's been bugging me lately. I don't like the way he looks at you. Maria reddened. What's that supposed to mean? She asked. I don't know. I just don't like it is all. Maria wanted to say something in Winston's defense, but suddenly she had an overwhelming desire to drop the subject. She didn't want to talk about Winston Egbert. It was dumb to be so disappointed about Thursday anyways, she thought. What was the big deal about helping Winston with his silly campaign speech? Michael was right, she assured herself, tucking her arm around his again. Winston was making too much out of the whole thing. There was no point in letting him get too dependent on her anyways. Not now. She was engaged, practically a married woman, which meant Michael was right to demand more of her time. She felt terrible about their argument. It was the first disagreement they'd had since they'd gotten engaged, and she was determined it would be their last. So basically in that chapter, chapter 4, We learn more about a pretty big conflict, considering that they're like 16 and like barely 18, right? But like a pretty big conflict between Michael and Maria is that Maria has promised to help Winston Egbert with his campaign speeches, and Michael keeps like pulling her into other engagements, possibly to make her avoid Winston Egbert. Now, I do think that Winston Egbert does possibly have a crush on her, which then I think is going to be used to prove, oh, Michael was right to demand so much of her time and demand that she give up, you know, her hobbies. But maybe it's a fake out, and maybe he'll just end up with Jessica and Michael will be like, oh, actually, you know, that was my B. Like, there is a balance between us spending more time together because we're engaged and like us still having our own separate hobbies. I do think him sort of demanding so much of her time and attention and trying to isolate her and not letting her go to an activity that she enjoys is a bit of a red flag. And by a bit, I mean a lot of a red flag. Get red flag guy in here, please. The other thing I will say is Michael's idea of like, well, our parents will be fine with us dating if we can show that we're taking it super seriously and we're actually engaged is like such a teenager idea. Like, that's such a teenager idea, and it's really funny. So far what I'll say is I don't like Michael. I think he's annoying. And it's not necessarily that Maria like wants to hang out with Winston Egbert, it's that she made this commitment, A, and B, like, it sounds like she's having fun helping him with the campaign. Also, it low-key sounds like Maria doesn't actually like Michael's family that much. Like, she says that his mom is a hypochondriac and kind of judges her for that, and then she doesn't like Kate, but I think maybe she a little bit doesn't like Kate because Kate and, was it like Richard or Roger? The person Kate is seeing, like, they're arguing a lot, and she has a lot of anxiety about that. So I hope they're able to communicate better, because like never getting into arguments in a relationship is unrealistic and unhealthy. Disagreeing on things in a relationship, like, that's just gonna happen, and avoiding any disagreement in a relationship because you don't want to like fight, that ends up being really unhealthy. What you have to learn to do is like how to handle that conflict and those disagreements in a way that's like mature, which like these people are literally kids. They're like 16 and barely 18, so like, okay. I think I am going to be done for now. We're like a bit less than, you can see, we're like a bit less than halfway through the book. But yeah, you know, maybe I'll put a picture of me at the club here or something. I don't know, whatever.
What the heck is up, broskies? I've decided this is gonna be a 3-part video because this book, for only being 11 chapters, it reads kinda long. So, enjoy this video from Interview with the Vampire Drag Knight of Puppet Armand and Daniel Malloy. I was, in fact, born in the right generation. But yeah, subscribe for part 2. Thank you so much for watching. Don't you want to know what happens?